A mean mother-in-law told me I wasn't part of the family right before our vacation, so my husband and I left them at the airport and went on our own trip instead. A few days ago, my husband's family and I were about to leave for a family vacation. They have a tradition of taking a trip together every year. My husband, 30M, and I, 30F, recently got married, but we had been together for 3 years before that. I was really excited to join them for the first time. Last year, when we were engaged, my husband invited me, but since his family hadn't asked me, I felt awkward and said no. This time my mother-in-law, Sandra, invited me, which was a big deal. I had always felt that Sandra didn't really like me. She had never been openly mean, but she wasn't as friendly to me as she was to others. She always seemed a bit distant and cold. I think a major reason for this was that when my husband and I started dating, he moved out of his parents' house to live with me. That's when her behavior towards me started changing. She tried to hide it, but I could tell she wasn't happy that I was the reason her son moved out. I'm very independent and have lived away from my parents since college, so moving in with my husband's parents was never an option for me. Living with either of our families was non-negotiable. I wasn't going to do that after marriage, and I didn't want to live close to his parents and have them visit frequently. When we were dating, I thought my expectations were reasonable and made them clear to my husband early on. He was okay with it, and as long as he was fine with it, I didn't see why anyone else should have an issue. My husband had also been thinking about getting his own place, but his mother wanted everyone to live together or close by so the family could gather on weekends or even every day. She had managed to make this happen so far. My husband has an older sister who, after getting married, moved out due to space issues but only down the street. They see each other almost every day. I think Sandra believes this is the only normal way to live and finds my preferences unreasonable because she's used to having her kids around all the time. My husband prefers living away from his family because he grew up with no privacy and enjoys having his own space now. We're both happy with our living arrangements, but I know Sandra blames me for this and feels that I'm the reason her son doesn't want to live with his family anymore. That seems to be why she doesn't like me. Despite this, I've always been pleasant to my husband's family and have tried my best to fit in, but it hasn't been enough. A couple of days ago, Sandra told me that she still doesn't consider me family, even though I married her son just a few months ago. We had been planning the family vacation for months, and I had actively participated in the preparations. Normally, my husband's parents pay for everything since they are quite well off, and my husband had told me we didn't need to worry about the money. Just to be clear, I didn't mind paying for myself, but I had been told that it wouldn't be necessary. Right before we were set to leave for our vacation, Sandra asked to talk to me alone. I went over to her place since my husband was still at work. She explained that they usually cover all the expenses for their family vacation, but this time she expected me to pay for myself. She said they didn't consider me family yet because they hadn't gotten to know me well enough. She wanted me to pay without making a fuss to keep things positive before the trip. But she didn't stop there. She said one reason she didn't see me as family was because she didn't see my husband and me as often as she did her other family members. Her words hurt me deeply because I had tried hard to fit in, even though Sandra had never really approved of me. She had made me believe I was part of the family by involving me in planning the vacation. If she had been honest from the start, I would have understood. But telling me this just before we were leaving felt incredibly cruel. I tried my hardest to hide how upset I was and act like everything was okay, even though I was really hurt inside. I didn't want to say anything until I talked to my husband, so I told Sandra it was okay and that I'd pay for myself. She seemed surprised that I wasn't upset, but I left without saying much more. When I got home, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. I explained everything to my husband, and he was furious. He wanted to cancel the vacation right then because he didn't want to spend time with his mother after how she treated me. I admitted to him that I had a feeling Sandra didn't like me for a while. I never brought it up before because I thought it was just a silly idea, but now I'm starting to think there might be some truth to it. I explained to my husband how his mom's attitude changed when he moved out to live with me and how she started acting cold towards me afterward. What she said about me not visiting often also made me think the same thing. When I told my husband, he said it could be true because he knew how much family meant to his mom. She was upset when he first moved out to live with me and didn't want to live nearby. Even though Sandra didn't show it, she might have blamed me for it and still held it against me, which could explain her behavior. But that still didn't excuse her for being so mean to me right before our vacation. I was feeling terrible that day, and after talking it over with my husband, we decided just canceling the vacation and confronting Sandra wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel as bad as I did, so we came up with a plan. We'd go along with their vacation plan, meet them at the airport, and then ditch them by taking a different flight to another destination. The next day, we executed our plan. We met the family at the airport as planned, made an excuse to step away for photos, and then quietly bought tickets for a flight to San Francisco instead of joining them. They didn't suspect a thing because they were busy chatting. Now we're here having a great time. We were originally supposed to go to Miami, but I prefer this because it's just me and my husband without anyone who doesn't like me. By the time we bought our tickets and got on the plane, his family noticed something was wrong and tried calling us many times. They'd even sent texts, but we ignored them. Thankfully, the airport is a big place, so they couldn't find us to stop or confront us. We reached our destination without any trouble. After our flight landed, we decided to respond. My husband explained everything to the family in a group text. He told them what Sandra had said to me the day before and explained that because it was supposed to be a family vacation and I wasn't considered family, we thought it was best to stay out of it to respect her wishes. We expected Sandra and maybe my father-in-law to be angry, but we didn't expect the whole family to turn against us. Everyone was really angry because we left them at the airport without telling them, and they were worried about us. They still took their flight, so I don't understand why they were so upset. They said it was irresponsible and selfish of us to disappear without saying anything, leaving them to worry about what happened to us. They were especially mad at me, thinking Sandra's words didn't deserve such a big reaction. They felt I shouldn't have expected them to pay for me to come on the family vacation, and that it was my mistake not to offer to pay for myself. They also pointed out that I hadn't made much effort to be part of the family. I never went to their weekly family dinners or kept in touch with them online, even though they chat every day. It seemed like I didn't have time for them, and while they respected that, they couldn't let me treat them like a bank. That's why Sandra felt she had to make it clear they wouldn't pay for me to join the vacation because I hadn't tried to get along with them or offered to pay for myself. You felt really hurt because you work hard for your money and would never expect someone else to pay for you. It bothered you that they thought you were entitled and self-centered. You explained to them that their expectations were unrealistic and didn't make sense. They said they had dinner together weekly, but it was actually more frequent, and they wanted you and your husband to join them often, which felt overwhelming. Despite this, you still made an effort to visit them regularly. You felt they were ignoring your efforts just to make you look bad. You reminded them of how much you tried to be part of their family, but they still weren't happy. They accused you of ruining their vacation with your actions. You wonder if you were wrong to go on a separate trip with your husband instead of joining his family. Edit. I feel like I had to make this clear because a lot of the comments were accusing me of isolating my husband, and that's a really heavy accusation to levy against someone. Let me just say that it wasn't just me who thought that the family getting together was a little excessive and unnecessary. No family needs to meet every other day for lunch and dinner. At that point, you might as well be living together. And what was the point of moving away from them if he was just going to visit them every single day? My husband also wanted this, not just me. The two of us had decided that we were going to live a little distance away from them and try to limit our visit to his family to maybe once a week. They were not happy about it, but this is what both of us wanted. It wasn't a decision that I made single-handedly, so I think it's unfair of everybody to just blame me for it, and that's exactly what his family is doing. I didn't need it from people on Reddit as well. Anyway, the point is that my husband was equally a part of this decision as me. Neither of us wanted to meet his family every other day. As for what they said about me expecting them to pay for my plane tickets and take me on vacation with them when I hadn't even made an effort to really get to know them and become a part of the family, I don't think any of that is true. I did not expect them or feel entitled for them to cover me for the vacation, and if they had told me right from the beginning that they expected me to cover my own expenses for the vacation, I would have either agreed to it or I just wouldn't have gone. But for Sandra to sit me down one day before the vacation and tell me that my expenses weren't going to be covered by them because I wasn't family, that just felt premeditated and a deliberate move to make me feel bad. I would not have had a problem paying for myself as I already mentioned above. They expect too much from me, but I don't ask for much. I've made a real effort to connect with them. They're saying I didn't try to be part of the family because I didn't visit them constantly, which is ridiculous. I really did try to make them like me. At first, I thought it was just Sandra who had an issue with me, but it seems like none of them like me as much as I hoped, and that's really disappointing. Update. My husband and I are still on vacation, but his family is causing issues. They're upset that I don't want to spend all my time with them, which I think is unfair. I shouldn't have to give up my personal space to make them happy. If they want to be upset, that's their choice, but I wish they wouldn't keep reminding us about it. We know they're mad, and we don't care. They need to accept that. Just yesterday they texted me, since texting my husband didn't work, to say my efforts to change their family won't work because their relationships are too strong. I found it overly dramatic for them to make a big fuss because, as far as I knew, I hadn't caused any trouble in their family. They insulted me, which is why my husband and I decided to distance ourselves from them. They don't seem to realize that my husband can make his own choices, and I can't force him to do anything. If we chose to have a separate vacation, it's because my husband wanted that too. I know it's hard for them to accept, but it's the truth. I texted them back, saying my husband also didn't want to be with them on vacation, and we both agreed on this. It's silly to just blame me. I also mentioned that if they had treated me better instead of being mean, maybe my husband wouldn't have wanted to separate from them. So if they want to blame someone, they should look at themselves. Sandra had been sending me those texts, but I knew that the entire family agreed with her, and it was a shared sentiment that I was somehow controlling my husband and forcing him to break away from his family. I didn't want to engage with her or anybody else from his family after I had said whatever I wanted to tell them, so I decided to block them all and focus on my vacation because I had taken time off for this and I wasn't about to let it go to waste. I told my husband about the text, and he told me to just ignore it because there was no point in trying to explain anything to them. They were too caught up among themselves to consider that maybe we just want to lead a normal life, and it wouldn't be possible if we were living with them or even around them. They're all just really dramatic. Update 2. So we finally came back from our vacation last night, and it was a really fun couple of days. But now that it's over, it's back to work. Now we were expecting to have a peaceful week back here, but that's not going to be possible because his family also returned today. We had no contact with his family when we were on vacation because both of us had blocked them all on every social media platform, and we had also blocked their numbers. They didn't know where we were, so they couldn't get to us in any way. It had been quite peaceful away from them and the drama, but now that we are back and so are they wasted no time in trying to reach out to us only to create drama. We had just come back home from a long day at work when we heard somebody at our doorstep ringing the bell like nobody's business. We knew that it had to be somebody from my husband's family even before we opened the door, and sure enough, it was Sandra standing right outside. We didn't want her to come inside and told her that we were really tired from work and we were not interested in speaking to her right now, but she pushed past us and entered the living room anyway. I got really upset and asked her to leave because her past behavior towards me was unacceptable. I didn't want to talk to her or hear her blame me for everything. However, she ignored me and said she was only here to talk to her son, so I should be quiet. I didn't like her tone, so I told her she couldn't talk to me like that, especially in my house. That made her angry, and she started yelling at me, accusing me of isolating her son and trying to disrespect her in front of him. She said she always knew this would happen because I supposedly wreck homes, and I couldn't handle my husband being close to his family because it meant I had less control over him. She called me names and claimed she was here to save her son from me because I wasn't family. I told her that I was glad that I was not a part of her family because it seemed to me like she wanted to run a cult more than just have a family. She completely lost it when I said that and practically launched herself at me. Before I knew it, she had grabbed me by the hair and was physically attacking me. It took my husband mere seconds to separate us and force his mother out of the house. She didn't stop screaming at me even as she was being kicked out of our house and kept calling me really derogatory things that I didn't even want to mention here because they were just that bad. I was quite shaken up, and I waited for a couple of seconds to calm down before my husband and I called the cops and had her removed from our property. She hadn't left even after my husband had pushed her out of the house and had remained in the front yard, screaming at the top of her voice about how I was breaking her family, but she was not going to let it happen. It wasn't until the cops finally arrived on the scene that she stopped yelling, and then she started begging us not to press charges, but it was too late. My husband and I had already made up our minds that we were not going to drop this so easily. I mean, she had attacked me physically, so I couldn't just let it go because then nothing would stop her from doing it a second time. So he and I pressed charges against her, and since I wasn't actually injured badly, they are probably going to let her off easy, but at least it's going to go on record. She was taken away, and she was actually sobbing uncontrollably when that was happening, which was crazy because just a few seconds before that, she had been screaming at us and threatening us. After that, my husband and I decided to start looking for a lawyer so we could get a restraining order against her because she could not be trusted clearly. There was something very unhinged about her, and I didn't want to risk anything. We also started thinking about moving away, something we had already been considering for a while, because this location was kind of inconvenient for my husband, and we were thinking about moving to a place that was equally close to both of our offices. We just want to leave no stone unturned to make sure that she can't get to us ever again, and it goes for his family as well. It's been a few hours since Sandra's arrest, and we haven't heard from his family yet. I know they'll be upset, and there might be consequences like being disinherited, but standing up to Sandra was necessary. We have no regrets about the arrest and the restraining order. Update 3. We successfully obtained the restraining order against Sandra. The past 2 weeks have been hectic with house hunting and legal procedures. Dealing with the aftermath and the court appearances kept us busy. Now that things have settled a bit, I can share this update. Sandra got a light punishment with just community service since I wasn't seriously hurt. However, my husband's family is twisting the story, portraying Sandra as the victim and claiming that I provoked her. They're spreading this false narrative to other family members. Thankfully, many people see through their lies and are supporting us. As a result, they're being cut off by those who know the truth. It's frustrating that they're trying to blame me for the attack when I was the victim. Their accusations don't make sense, but that's the story they're sticking to. Despite this, I stand by what I said to Sandra about her behavior. If given the chance, I would say it again because it needed to be said, even if it led to another attack. We probably won't see them again soon because of the restraining order, and we recently moved to a new house. They don't know where we live now, and we've blocked them on social media since our vacation, so we're not worried about them finding us. My husband is especially relieved because he felt suffocated around his family. If my family acted like that, I'd feel the same. I'm grateful for my family and my husband's support.